2 years after the war ended, the galaxy was a very different place. Diplomat Sung-Ho Ryu stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the neutral world of Harmony Station, looking out at representatives from over 300 species. Some were former Vorthak slaves who had been freed. Others were independent worlds that had joined the new Galactic Alliance voluntarily. At the center of the hall sat Thaxmor, the former supreme war leader of the Vorthak Empire. He looked very different from the angry creature who had once commanded genocide. His scarred face was calm, and his eyes showed intelligence instead of rage. The motion to establish universal education standards has been passed, Xiang-Ho announced. All species will have access to the same learning systems that humans developed during their 5,000 years of peace. Thaxmor raised one of his clawed hands. Ambassador Ryu, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. You are giving away the secrets that made humans so powerful? Xiang-Ho smiled. Knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied, war leader. When everyone is educated, everyone becomes stronger. The title war leader was no longer an insult. In the new galaxy, it was a position of respect. Thaxmor had become the leader of former Vorthak worlds, helping his people transform from conquerors into builders. In another part of the station, Dr. Changmin Park was working with a team of alien scientists on something called the Benevolent Victory Protocol. It was designed to help aggressive species learn to channel their fighting instincts into positive activities. The key, he explained to his mixed team of humans,
Vorthak and other species, is not to eliminate the desire to compete.
It's to redirect it toward goals that help everyone. His assistant, a young Vorthak named Krixel, who had once been a soldier, nodded eagerly. So instead of conquering planets, we compete to see who can help more people? Exactly. The same drive that made you good at war can make you excellent at healing, building, teaching, and exploring. Across the galaxy, this transformation was happening everywhere. The species that the Vorthak had conquered were not just freed. They were invited to join something greater than anything they had imagined. On Earth, Grand Admiral Yejin Moon was meeting with representatives from the new Galactic Navy. Unlike the old Vorthak Empire, which had been built on fear, the new alliance was built on cooperation and mutual benefit. Admiral, asked Commander Vextar, a former Vorthak fleet captain, I still don't understand how humans could have ended the war so quickly but chose not to. Admiral Moon pulled up a holographic display showing the final battle. Commander, we could have destroyed your entire empire in the first week. Our hidden fleets had been in position around every Vorthak world for decades. The alien representatives in the room stared in shock. Captain Zomir, from a species that had been freed from Vorthak slavery, spoke up. You mean you were always ready to destroy them? We were ready to do whatever was necessary, Admiral Moon confirmed. But destruction was our last choice, not our first. We spent 3 months studying the Vorthak, learning about their culture, understanding why they became conquerors. She changed the display to show detailed analysis of Vorthak society. We discovered that they became aggressive because they were afraid. Their homeworld had been attacked by other species long ago, and they decided the only safety was in conquest. Thaxmor nodded sadly. She speaks the truth. We were once a peaceful people, much like humans during their long peace. When we were attacked, we chose fear over wisdom. So we helped them choose differently, Admiral Moon continued. Instead of destroying them, we showed them a better way to feel safe, by making friends instead of enemies. Commander Vextar looked confused. But why didn't you just tell us this from the beginning? Why fight at all? Admiral Moon smiled. Would you have listened if we had simply explained it? Or did you need to see our strength before you could accept our wisdom? The former Vorthak commander thought about this for a long moment, then nodded. You are right. We would not have listened. We only respected strength, so you had to show us your strength first. But you showed us more than just strength, added Thaxmor. You showed us what strength could be used for. We had only ever used power to take things from others. You used power to give things to others. Captain Sora Lim, who now commanded a mixed crew of humans and former enemies, was on patrol near the old Vorthak border. Her ship, the Silent Thunder, was no longer a weapon of war but a vessel of exploration and protection. Captain, called her tactical officer, a young human named Park Jamin, were receiving a distress call from the Theta system. What kind of distress? Pirates, Captain. A group of independent raiders is attacking a peaceful trading convoy. Sora smiled grimly. Well, they picked the wrong convoy to attack. All ships prepare for intervention. Her fleet consisted of 12 ships with crews from 7 different species. They moved with the same precision that had once destroyed Vorthak fleets, but now they used that precision to protect the innocent. The pirates never knew what hit them. They surrendered within minutes of the first shot, faced with tactics and technology that made resistance pointless. "This is Captain Lim of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force," she broadcast to the defeated pirates. "You have a choice. Join our rehabilitation program and learn to make an honest living, or spend the rest of your lives in prison. Choose wisely." Most chose rehabilitation. Like the Vorthak before them, they discovered that being part of something greater was more satisfying than taking what belonged to others. Back on Harmony Station, Ambassador Ryu was concluding the assembly session. "The new Galactic Constitution has been approved by all member worlds. We are no longer separate species competing for resources. We are one community working together for everyone's benefit." The representatives cheered, but the loudest cheers came from the former Vorthak delegates. They had gone from being the galaxy's greatest threat to being some of its strongest supporters of peace. Later that evening, Seung-ho found himself on the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars with Thaxmore. The former war leader was quiet for a long time before speaking. "Ambassador, I have a confession to make." "What's that, war leader?" "When we first encountered humans, we thought you were weak because you had known peace for so long. We could not imagine that peace might make someone stronger instead of weaker." Seung-ho nodded. "Many species make that mistake. They think that conflict makes you strong and peace makes you weak. But humans learned something different during our 5,000 years of peace." "What did you learn?" "We learned that the strongest warriors are those who fight only when they must and only for the right reasons. We learned that true victory is not defeating your enemies. It's turning your enemies into friends." Thaxmore was quiet again, thinking about this. Finally he spoke. "In our old empire, we measured success by how many worlds we conquered." "How do you measure success?" Seung-ho smiled and pointed out at the stars, where ships from dozens of different species were working together, exploring, trading, and building. "We measure success by how many people are happy, how many problems are solved, and how much the galaxy grows together. And if a new threat appears, if another aggressive empire tries to conquer us, then we will do what we did with you. We will show them our strength, teach them our wisdom, and offer them the choice to grow beyond what they are." Thaxmore nodded slowly. "And if they refuse to change?" Seung-ho's expression became serious for just a moment. "Then we will do what is necessary to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But we will always try wisdom first." As they stood together looking at the peaceful galaxy, both of them understood something important. The war had not really been about humans defeating the Vorthak. It had been about both species learning to become better than they were before. The 5,000 years of peace had not made humans weak. It had made them wise enough to know that true strength comes not from destroying others, but from helping them become their best selves. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. 3 months after the first attacks, the Vorthak Empire was facing something they had never experienced in their 1,000-year history: defeat. Every battle they fought against humans ended in disaster. Every strategy they tried was countered perfectly. Every weapon they used was made useless by human tactics. Supreme War Leader Thaxmore stood in his command chamber on the Vorthak homeworld, staring at reports that made no sense. "Explain to me again how we lost the Battle of Kepler Station." His military advisor, a scarred veteran named Kreldor, looked ashamed. "Sir, we sent 5,000 ships against their small mining station. The humans had maybe 50 defenders. And? They destroyed our entire fleet in 4 hours, sir. We didn't kill a single human." Thaxmore threw the report across the room. "How is this possible? We have conquered 47 species. We have never lost a single battle." "The humans fight differently than anyone we've faced before, sir. They don't just react to our attacks. They predict them. Sometimes they're shooting at our ships before our ships even arrive." What Kreldor didn't understand was that humans had been watching Vorthak battles for centuries through hidden sensors placed throughout the galaxy. Every Vorthak tactic had been studied, analyzed, and countered long before the war began. On Earth, Fleet Admiral He Jinjiang was reviewing those same battle reports with very different emotions. She had spent the last 3 months in deep space, commanding what humans called the Lost Fleet, ships that had been officially decommissioned, but were actually being upgraded with technology that wouldn't exist for another 1,000 years. "Admiral," reported her communications officer, "the Vorthak are massing their entire empire for a final assault. Over 50,000 ships." Admiral Zhang smiled. She was a small woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen more battles in simulations than any Vorthak had seen in real life. "Perfect. It's time to stop playing with them. Ma'am, for 3 months we've been studying them, learning how they think, testing our theories. We've been gentle with them, only destroying what we needed to. But now they want to bring their full force against us." She stood up and looked out at the stars. Time to show them what humans can really do. The Lost Fleet consisted of 1,000 ships that didn't appear on any official records. Each one was equipped with weapons designed by master tactician Jun Seo-ho, a man who spent his life creating solutions for impossible problems. "Admiral," called out Commander Boram Seo from the tactical station, "I'm receiving activation codes from all human worlds. The Volunteer Corps is mobilizing." Admiral Zhang nodded. The Volunteer Corps was something the Vorthak couldn't imagine. An army of billions of civilians who had trained their entire lives for this moment without knowing it. Across human space, factory workers stopped making furniture and started making weapons. Teachers stopped teaching children and started commanding fleets. Artists stopped creating paintings and started designing battle strategies. Every human had a second role they had never used but always known about. On New Seoul, engineer Choi Hyun-sik received a message that activated programming buried deep in his mind. Suddenly, he remembered designs for weapons he had never built but somehow understood perfectly. Within hours, he was converting the city's manufacturing plants into the most advanced weapons factory in the galaxy. The same thing was happening on 10,000 worlds. Humans were not just fighting back. They were transforming their entire civilization into the perfect war machine. Master tactician Jun Seo-ho was watching this transformation from his secret laboratory on Mars. For 60 years, people thought he designed computer games and entertainment systems. In reality, he had been preparing protocols for the day when humanity would need to become something more than peaceful. "Initiate Impossible Victory Protocol 7, he said to his computer system. "Confirmed. Activating all hidden systems. Estimated time to full military transformation 6 hours. Jun Seo smiled. The Impossible Victory Protocols were battle plans designed to win wars that couldn't be won. He had created 50 different versions, each one more creative than the last. Protocol 7 was designed specifically for enemies who thought numbers could overcome strategy. On the Vorthak homeworld, Supreme War Leader Thaxmore was receiving reports that his entire empire was mobilizing for the greatest battle in their history. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon they possessed was moving toward human space. "This will end them," he declared to his generals. "They may be clever, but they cannot stand against the full might of our empire. We will destroy every human world and make their species extinct." His confidence lasted exactly 4 hours. That's how long it took for Admiral Zhang's Lost Fleet to travel from deep space to the Vorthak staging area. The alien empire had gathered its forces around their fortress world of Grimtar, believing themselves safe behind massive defensive systems. They never saw the human ships coming. The Lost Fleet didn't attack like normal fleets. They attacked like a force of nature. Ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Weapons fired from directions that should have been empty space. Entire Vorthak squadrons were destroyed by enemies they couldn't detect. "Impossible," roared Thaxmore as he watched his empire's greatest fleet being systematically destroyed. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Zhang was commanding the battle from the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Victory. Her tactical display showed every Vorthak ship as a red dot, and every red dot was disappearing with mechanical precision. "Commander Seo, what's our casualty count?" she asked. "0 human casualties, Admiral. We haven't even been hit." "Good. Begin Phase 2 of the protocol." Phase 2 was not about destroying the enemy. It was about breaking their will to fight. Dr. Baek had studied Vorthak psychology for centuries and knew exactly what would make them surrender. Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting messages directly into Vorthak minds. The messages were not threats or demands. They were lessons about why the Vorthak had already lost. "Your tactics are 3,000 years out of date," said one broadcast. "You rely on fear instead of strategy. You attack with anger instead of planning. You cannot win because you do not understand what winning means." The psychological warfare was devastating. Vorthak commanders who had never experienced doubt began to question everything they believed. Ships started retreating without orders. Some crews abandoned their posts and surrendered. Within 6 hours, the greatest Vorthak fleet in history was completely destroyed or had surrendered. The empire that had conquered 47 species was broken by a single human battle group. But Admiral Jang wasn't finished. She opened a communication channel to the Vorthak homeworld. "Supreme War Leader Thaxmore," she said calmly, "your empire is defeated, but we offer you a choice. Surrender now, and we will help you become better than you were. Continue fighting, and we will end your civilization completely." Thaxmore stared at the human face on his screen. This small, silver-haired woman had just destroyed his entire military with casual ease. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "We want you to learn," Admiral Jang replied. "We want you to grow. We want you to become worthy partners instead of failed conquerors." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Jang's expression didn't change. "Then tomorrow, your homeworld will be empty, and your species will be extinct. Not because we hate you, but because you chose to remain what you are instead of becoming what you could be. The choice was simple: evolution or extinction. The Vorthak Empire chose to evolve." The first Vorthak attack came exactly 7 days after their ultimatum, just as they had promised. Commander Yujin Kang watched from the bridge of her ship. The rapid strike as enemy vessels approached the outer colony of New Busan. The alien fleet was massive. Over 2,000 ships moving in perfect formation toward the small farming world. "Commander," her communications officer called out, "the colonists are requesting evacuation assistance." Yujin smiled. "Tell them evacuation won't be necessary. Tell them to move to the entertainment centers and enjoy the show." Her crew looked confused, but they followed orders. On New Busan, 15,000 colonists who grew rice and vegetables received a message that changed their lives forever. "Attention, citizens. You are no longer farmers. You are now military commanders. Please report to your local community centers for mission assignments." The Vorthak expected to find terrified civilians running in panic. Instead, they found people calmly walking into buildings and closing the doors behind them. Within minutes, every colonist on New Busan was sitting at a control station, looking at tactical displays that showed the approaching enemy fleet. "This is strange," muttered Vorthak Fleet Commander Grixtar as he watched his sensors. "Where are their defense ships? Where are their weapons?" His question was answered when the first wave of Vorthak fighters reached the planet's atmosphere. Suddenly, the empty space around New Busan filled with explosions. Ships that weren't there a moment before appeared out of nowhere, firing weapons that the Vorthak had never seen. "Impossible," Grixtar roared. "Where did those ships come from?" Captain Sora Lim was commanding one of those impossible ships. The Silent Thunder had been hiding in what the Vorthak thought was empty space, using technology that made it invisible to their sensors. She had been waiting for 3 days along with 49 other hidden ships. "Target the command vessels first," she ordered her crew. "Make them confused before we make them dead." The hidden human fleet struck with precision that the Vorthak couldn't understand. Every shot hit its target. Every movement was perfectly coordinated. Within 10 minutes, the first wave of alien fighters was completely destroyed. On the surface of New Busan, Farmer Park Min-ho was commanding a defense battery that emerged from underground. Yesterday, he had been worried about crop diseases. Today, he was destroying alien warships with the same calm concentration he used to plant seeds. "Target acquired," he said into his headset. "Firing in 3, 2, 1. Another Vorthak ship exploded in a ball of fire. Dr. Jin Hobaek was watching the battle from a command ship hidden behind New Busan's moon. As a psychological warfare specialist, his job was to study how the enemies reacted to losing. "Interesting," he said to his assistant. "Look at their formation. When they lose ships, they bunch together instead of spreading out. They're acting from fear, not strategy. Should we exploit that weakness, Doctor?" "Not yet. Let them make more mistakes first. We need to understand how their minds work." Commander Grixtar was indeed making mistakes. Faced with an enemy that appeared from nowhere and fought with impossible skill, he did exactly what Dr. Beck expected. He called for reinforcements and ordered his ships to group together for protection. All ships, form defensive positions around the flagship, he commanded. We will overwhelm them with superior numbers. Captain Lim heard this order and smiled. They're doing exactly what the war games predicted they would do. All ships, prepare for the Cascade Formation. The Cascade Formation was a battle pattern that human strategists had developed in war games centuries ago. It was designed to defeat enemies who relied on numbers instead of tactics. When the Vorthak ships bunched together, they made themselves the perfect target. 50 human ships suddenly appeared in a perfect sphere around the alien fleet. Each ship was exactly where it needed to be to cause maximum damage. When they fired together, the result was devastating. Half the Vorthak fleet was destroyed in 30 seconds. Commander Grixtar stared at his display in shock. His sensors showed that the human ships had appeared in impossible positions. No fleet could coordinate that precisely. No commanders could plan something so complex. He didn't know that every move had been practiced by millions of humans in war games over thousands of years. The Cascade Formation had been tested, improved, and perfected countless times. The captains executing it had run this exact scenario in simulations hundreds of times. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're broadcasting something on all frequencies." "What are they saying?" "It appears to be educational content, sir. They're explaining their tactics and asking other humans to suggest improvements." Grixtar couldn't believe what he was hearing. In the middle of battle, the humans were teaching each other how to fight better. They were treating the war like a learning experience. On Earth, Admiral Lee was watching reports from dozens of battles happening across human space. The Vorthak had attacked 50 worlds simultaneously, expecting to overwhelm human defenses with surprise and numbers. Instead, they were being systematically destroyed at every location. "Admiral," reported General Nam, "victory rates are exceeding all projections. Our forces are winning with minimal casualties. How are the colonists adapting?" "Better than expected. Civilians are transitioning to military roles with no difficulty. The 5,000 years of peacetime training are working perfectly." Admiral Lee nodded. Since the attacks began, over 100 million humans had discovered their true purpose. People who thought they were teachers, farmers, artists, and shop owners had learned they were actually military strategists, weapons designers, tactical analysts, and combat engineers. The transition was so smooth that most of them weren't even surprised. Dr. Sojin Park, back on Captain Kim's research ship, was analyzing captured Vorthak communications. "Captain, they're calling for help from their homeworlds. They're telling their leaders that humans are not what they expected. What are they saying about us? They're saying we fight like demons, think like computers, and coordinate like a hive mind. They can't understand how we work together so well." Captain Kim looked at his crew. These people had worked together for years, studying plants and rocks. Now they were decoding alien languages and planning military operations. The transition felt completely natural. "Doctor, are we monitoring their reinforcement fleets?" "Yes, Captain. 3 more waves are coming. Each one is larger than the last," Kim smiled. "Good. The more they send, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the stronger we become." Across human space, the same conversation was happening on thousands of ships and worlds. Humans were not just winning their first battles. They were treating each victory as a lesson that made them better fighters. The Vorthak had started a war expecting to face weak, peaceful creatures. Instead, they had awakened something that had been preparing for this moment for 5,000 years. Admiral Tae-ho Lee stood before the largest gathering of military minds in 5,000 years. The War Council chamber had been sealed since the last conflict ended, but now it buzzed with energy. 50 people sat around the ancient table, all of them carrying titles that most humans had forgotten existed. "Welcome," Admiral Lee said, "to the first War Council meeting since the year 2024. I know this seems strange, but I assure you we are ready for what comes next." General Wu Jin Nam raised his hand. He was a tall man with kind eyes who, until yesterday, had been running the global entertainment network. "Admiral, most people think I organize game shows and sports events. They don't know about my other job," Lee smiled. "Tell them, General. For 3,000 years, I have been the secret director of the strategic gaming leagues. Every war game played by humans in the last 30 centuries has been designed by my teams. We have run over 10 million different battle scenarios, every possible enemy, every type of conflict, every kind of weapon. Around the table, other council members nodded. Professor Eun Ji-yoon spoke next. She was small and quiet, the kind of person others barely noticed. I run the Department of Historical Analysis. We have studied every battle ever fought by any species we know about. We have found the mistakes, learned from them, and created better solutions. What Professor Yoon isn't saying, added Dr. Jin-ho Baek, is that we have also been studying psychological warfare for centuries. We know how different species think, how they make decisions, and how to make them afraid. Colonel Dong-hyun Shin, who commanded something called the War Games Division, stood up. Admiral, should we tell them about the training programs? Lee nodded. The time for secrets is over. Colonel Shin activated a holographic display that filled the room with images. Every human child begins strategic training at age 5. They think they're playing games, but they're learning military tactics. By age 15, the average human teenager can command a space fleet better than most alien generals. The images showed children playing with toys that looked like simple puzzles, but the movements they made were the same ones used by great military leaders throughout history. The War Games Leagues are not entertainment, Shin continued. They are the largest military training program ever created. Right now, there are over 2 billion humans actively participating in strategic simulations. Each one is learning to solve impossible problems. Professor Yoon added more images to the display. We have been preparing for the Vorthak for 800 years. Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. What do you mean? Asked Admiral Lee. The Vorthak Empire has been expanding toward our galaxy for centuries. We detected them long ago and have been studying them ever since. We know their ship designs, their battle tactics, their culture, and their weaknesses. She waved her hand, and the holographic display showed detailed images of Vorthak ships and soldiers. They are a brutal species that conquers through fear and superior numbers. They have defeated every enemy they have faced because those enemies were weaker and less organized. But they have never fought humans. Dr. Baek smiled. They use psychological warfare, but they don't understand it. They think scary faces and threatening words will make us afraid. They don't realize that humans have been studying fear for thousands of years. Admiral Lee walked around the table, looking at each council member. How long until we are ready to fight? We are already ready, said General Nam. We have been ready for centuries. The question is not whether we can win. The question is how quickly we want to win. What do you mean? We could end this war in 3 days, Colonel Shin said calmly. We have weapons and strategies that the Vorthak cannot imagine. But if we win too quickly, we won't learn anything new. And learning is what humans do best. Professor Yoon nodded. Every war teaches us something new about conflict and about ourselves. If we destroy the Vorthak too easily, we will miss an opportunity to grow stronger. Admiral Lee sat down and looked around the room. These people had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment, even though they never knew if it would come. They had turned the study of war into an art form, a science and a philosophy all at once. How do you recommend we proceed? He asked. General Nam stood up and activated another display. We let them attack first. We let them think they are winning for a while. We study their tactics, learn their patterns, and understand their culture. Then when we have learned everything we can, we show them what humans are really capable of. The display showed star maps with thousands of red dots representing Vorthak ships, but it also showed blue dots representing human forces. There were far more blue dots than red ones. Where did all those ships come from? Admiral Lee asked. They have always been there, Colonel Shin said. Every human world has defenses that most people don't know about. Every research station is also a military base. Every civilian ship can be turned into a warship in hours. Dr. Beck pointed to specific areas on the map. And every human civilian is trained in tactics. The Vorthak will not be fighting soldiers. They will be fighting entire populations of strategic geniuses. The terraforming projects? Admiral Lee asked. All military preparations, Professor Yoon confirmed. We have been building the perfect battlefield for 5,000 years. Every human world is designed to be defended. Admiral Lee stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the city going about its normal day. People were walking, talking, and laughing. They looked peaceful and harmless. Do they know? He asked. Do the people know what they really are? Some do, General Nam said. The ones who are very good at the war games have been contacted privately over the years. But most don't know. They just think they enjoy strategic puzzles and competitive games. When they find out the truth, they will be excited, Colonel Shin said confidently. Humans love challenges. The bigger the challenge, the more excited we become. The Vorthak are offering us the greatest challenge in our history. Admiral Lee turned back to face the council. Then let's give them what they want. Let's give them a war. But let's make sure it's the kind of war that only humans can fight. The council members smiled. After 5,000 years of peace, they were finally going to do what they had been born for. Outside the chamber, across human space, the preparation began. People who had spent their lives playing games suddenly found themselves being asked to join the real thing. Engineers who built entertainment systems started building weapons instead. And everywhere humans gathered, they began to laugh again. Not because they were afraid, but because they finally had something worthy of their abilities. The Vorthak had no idea what was coming for them. Captain Hyunwoo Kim sat in his command chair aboard the research vessel Eternal Dawn, watching the stars through the main window. For 45 years he had traveled between worlds, studying plants and animals on distant planets. Like everyone else in the Terran Federation, he had never seen a war. No human had for 5,000 years. The peace had lasted so long that most people forgot what war even meant. History books told stories of ancient battles, but they seemed like fairy tales. Ships carried no weapons. Soldiers existed only in old movies. The galaxy was quiet and safe. Captain, called Dr. Sojin Park from her science station. She was looking at her screen with a confused expression. I'm picking up something strange. Very strange. Hyunwoo walked over to her station. Sojin was the best scientist he knew, and she rarely got confused about anything. What is it? Massive energy readings coming from the dark space beyond our galaxy, she said, pointing at the data. Hundreds of ships. No, thousands, maybe more. The bridge crew gathered around Sojin's station. Everyone stared at the impossible numbers on her screen. Nothing that big had ever been seen in space before. Are you sure these readings are right? Asked Hyunwoo. Sojin nodded slowly. I've checked 3 times. Captain, these ships are huge. Each one is bigger than our largest space stations. And they're all moving toward our galaxy. Before Hyunwoo could respond, every screen on the ship lit up with an incoming message. A face appeared that made everyone step back in shock. The creature had gray skin, sharp teeth, and eyes like burning coals. It was clearly not human. People of this galaxy, the alien said in perfect human language, we are the Vorthak hegemony. We have conquered 47 species across 12 galaxies. Your time of peace is over. The crew stood in stunned silence. First contact with aliens was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. Scientists had planned for it for centuries. This was not what anyone expected. You have 7 of your days to surrender completely, the alien continued. Give us your worlds, your ships, and your people. Serve us, and some of you may live. Resist, and we will destroy everything you have built. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in complete silence. Hyunwoo looked around at his crew. They were scientists, not soldiers. They studied flowers and collected rock samples. What were they supposed to do against alien conquerors? Then something unexpected happened. Engineer Mi Young Choi started laughing. It began as a small chuckle, then grew into full laughter. Soon the entire bridge crew was laughing with her. I'm sorry, Mi Young said, wiping tears from her eyes. But did they really think they could scare us with that speech? It sounded like something from those old war movies. Hyunwoo found himself smiling despite the situation. You're right. It was pretty dramatic. Across the galaxy, the same thing was happening on every human ship and every human world. People watched the alien threat and they laughed. Not because they were afraid, but because it seemed so silly and old-fashioned. On Earth, in the capital city of New Geneva, Admiral Tae-ho Lee was having a very different reaction. He sat in his office watching the alien message for the 20th time. Unlike everyone else, he was not laughing. He was excited. Admiral Lee was the Supreme Commander of the Terran Defense Corps, a job that had been mostly ceremonial for thousands of years. He spent his time organizing parades and managing museums, but he had studied every war in human history, and he knew something that most people had forgotten. Humans were very, very good at war. Lee pressed a button on his desk. Contact all department heads. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. Code 7 authorization. His assistant looked confused. Sir, what's Code 7? I've never heard of it. It's the war code. Lee said calmly. "It hasn't been used in 5,000 years." Within minutes, messages went out across human space. Old systems that had been sleeping for millennia suddenly came alive. Deep in government buildings, sealed doors opened for the first time in centuries. People with job titles that no one remembered received messages telling them to report for duty. In her laboratory on Mars, Professor Yoonji Yoon received one of these messages. She was a military historian, though most people thought her job was just about collecting old artifacts. When her computer screen showed the activation code, she smiled and began gathering her research. All across human space, similar scenes were playing out. Dr. Jin-Ho Bayek stopped his psychology research and opened files marked Classified War Studies Only. General Wu Jin Nam left his position running entertainment programs and activated systems that had been hidden for thousands of years. Back on the Eternal Dawn, Captain Kim was receiving new orders. All research vessels are to return to the nearest human world immediately, came the message from headquarters. New mission parameters will be provided upon arrival. As his ship turned toward home, Hyun-woo thought about the alien threat. The Vorthak seemed powerful and dangerous. They claimed to have conquered dozens of species. They had thousands of ships and probably billions of soldiers. What they didn't know was that humans had spent the last 5,000 years preparing for exactly this moment. During the long peace, humans had not grown soft or weak. Instead, they had turned the study of war into the greatest intellectual challenge in their civilization. Every strategy ever used in battle had been analyzed, improved, and perfected. Every possible enemy had been imagined and planned for. War games were the most popular entertainment in human space. Millions of people spent their free time commanding virtual fleets and solving impossible military problems. Children learned battle tactics along with reading and mathematics. The greatest minds in human civilization spent their lives thinking about conflict and victory. The aliens had made a simple mistake. They saw 5,000 years of peace and thought it meant humans were weak. They could not imagine that peace might be the greatest weapon of all. As the Eternal Dawn flew toward Earth, Dr. Sojin Park was still studying the alien ships. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think I know why everyone was laughing." "Why?" "Their ships are impressive, but their tactics are terrible. They're flying in straight lines, broadcasting on open channels, giving us a week to prepare. Any human child playing war games could do better than this." Captain Kim nodded slowly. For the first time since the aliens arrived, he wasn't worried about the coming war. He was looking forward to it.